This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by Chasing Artwork, who will be premiering his third art book at the Emerald City Comic Con this March 14th to 17th.
Attention, citizens! It's time for Super Pulp Science!
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. We're here with our special guest and co-host and producer, Dan.
Hi, I'm not a co-host.
Well, every now and then you take over the microphone.
I do.
So you're an honorary co-host.
We want higher ratings and more views.
Yeah.
More views for a podcast?
Well, that's incorrect, Justin.
Think about
We
the
brought
views.
Dan on because he's going to ask us some telling questions. We have a lot of stuff going on coming up, and I don't really know where to start. And so Dan said, maybe I'll come on and ask some questions.
Let's start with this past weekend, because you had a very busy weekend. Saturday was Winterfest, which is kind of like your first con of the year. Like you've had the big long stretch of no conventions. You had Winterfest, now you're going to more conventions coming up. So how was Winterfest for you guys?
Winterfest is kind of like the moment where the groundhog comes out of the hole.
Yeah.
And if he sees his shadow, I don't know how that works. If you see it, he goes back in.
I don't
or
think he
comes
ever
out.
doesn't see his shadow here in Winnipeg. We always get 6 more weeks of winter.
That's right. But in this case, as soon as we come out of the hole, we get immediately 6 more weeks of conventions, right? So Winterfest is a great little show. It's run so well. It's Icon Winnipeg runs the show. They've got, I think at the heart of it is their volunteers. Like the volunteers clearly want to be there. They're really excited. I don't know what they do for the volunteers. There must be some other incentives for them that is not just like helping us carry our heavy stuff and like.
They all, from what I've gathered, just based on who I've spoken to, they all really love anime. They all want to celebrate it, and that's their passion for the medium and for the content is what drives them. They want to put on the best possible anime convention. I think that comes through in Icon as well in July.
Totally. Absolutely.
That's the bigger 3-day con, but the fact that they just have this 1-day event, it goes it goes to midnight, doesn't it, or something?
It does. The marketplace is from 12 till 8 o'clock, but if you want to stick around, it goes until midnight.
Yeah, midnight or 2. They have
There's dances and stuff like that.
DJs,
Yeah.
and there's stuff for
Lots
the
of
community.
movies playing. And
It's not just a show about buying stuff, which I think goes a long way for why.
Oh, yeah, that's what
it
people
has
really
built such
want.
community.
Yeah.
And they have a bunch of video programming. So if you're new to the scene and you want to see what all the fuss is about, they have greatest hits of films playing all over for the whole day, and you have people cruising in and out and just with their minds blown, which is so refreshing and nice. It's a great first show for the season because it's only 1 day, so it's an easy lead up.
And was last year your first year at Winterfest?
Yeah, this is my third Icon run event.
Okay.
Because you're fairly new to the anime convention scene in general.
Yeah, and it's your fault that
It's
I'm
my
in
fault.
it now. Yeah.
So what I've always kind of put them in different camps. Normal comic conventions is a good range of hardcore, nerds that are really, really into their fandoms, as well as there is kind of there's a casual crowd as well who's just there to check things out, and they're
They've seen a science fiction movie once, so they came with their boyfriend.
Or they're
Normal
part of the
people.
Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
Marvel
Probably
Cinematic
brings
Universe has
those
done a
people in.
lot for
Yeah.
Comic-Cons for sure.
The attendees of an anime convention, they are a couple levels above that hardcore nerd that you usually find at a comic convention. I find people are so passionate about their fandoms and about the anime culture. It's the vibe is different.
Yeah, and I will pontificate as to why I'll be an armchair psychologist for this one. It's a younger audience, right, in general at the anime shows, and they have spent their formative years connected to a certain show or a certain thing, and so it means a lot more to them.
I also think it's
than
not
it
as
does, too.
mainstream as comic book stuff is now, so they probably can't express their love of this
Right.
during most of their
Totally. Well, nowhere else can I have such a deep dive into the Ghost in the Shell anime and manga, which no one ever wants to talk to me about at regular comic shows. But at Icon, I can find 100 people who really want to talk about
My
the
kids,
major.
my kids are into anime. In particular, My Hero Academia. They really enjoy that series, and they started buying all the manga, as my son calls it.
Right.
Manga. So they started buying those, and they're reading through all of those. And I'm wondering, is that now? You say it's being a younger audience. Does that mean like, do they age out? Do they outgrow anime eventually, or do you see people who just kind of grow up with it continue to love it?
So my personal experience is that when I was like 15 to 18 is when I first saw like bootlegs of Akira and like that kind of thing, right? But now it's more like you can get it. You can go on Crunchyroll. You can go like all these streaming services. You can just get all the, animated content that you want. So I don't think there'll be an age out the same way. Like there was this gap in our generation where there was a little bit of it, and because it was a cartoon and because we were teenagers, we were like, wow, it's a cartoon that has blood or like adult situations in it. Wow, that's crazy.
That's what Akira was, the gateway drug for me into that
for
stuff.
sure.
Like that's just the film that kind of changed everything.
But I think like this generation won't age out of it because there is steady content for them at every threshold in their life. Right.
Too bad Sam is in here. Sam's a big anime.
Oh, she is.
Yeah. And if we
so-
could all, tumble into the Studio Ghibli feels if we want to.
Yes.
Right? Grave of Fireflies.
Such an uplifting film.
If you want to have a really good cry, Grave of Fireflies.
What's with all the noise in your brain today?
Must be a loose wire.
Prior to the Icon Winterfest as well, we did a Pikakucha event last week. Pikakucha. Anyways.
Pikachu? Let's bring it all together.
Detective Pikachu. And we're back in anime.
That's right.
And all three of us did a talk. So I think we'll talk about that on like one of the next podcasts when we get all the audio for it, so we can like talk about it and then do all that. But I found it kind of it was like my first public speaking event in a while, and it was like I was rusty all over again. Whereas like after doing a couple school visits and stuff like that, you kind of get in the groove. And I just found that was interesting how you get out of practice at public speaking.
Can be But I noticed about your presentation is that you owned your own rustiness at the beginning. You were like, oh, hi, everyone. I haven't done this in a little while. Mm-hmm. But here's how my last one went. Like you prefaced it by talking about a terrible experience.
That lowers everybody's expectations.
Right, yeah. And then, but the way in which you were so casual about talking to the crowd demonstrates that even though you felt rusty, you're pretty comfortable in front of a big group of people these days, I think. So maybe like your threshold for what is good or bad, you've grown, is I guess what I'm getting at. You've grown as a person.
You just put in the practice.
Yeah.
That's been a topic we've been talking about in a couple different groups of friends. We've been talking about the amount of time you put into things before you start seeing results, and it always just comes down to practice.
Yeah. And I was saying to Tara, I was saying to my wife that she was like, yeah, are you nervous? I was like, no, that's gone away now. I don't get nervous about speaking in front of people anymore at all, which is that's weird.
You've done it a lot. That's because you've done it a lot. Even your teaching experience is that.
Imagine teaching has a lot to do with that.
Like I get nervous in front of a new class in school when I get new students, but that goes away as I get to know them.
Right.
But anytime I'm in front of a new crowd, I get a bit nervous about stuff. But
see, but I wonder. So, what are you nervous about, though?
I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know. No, nothing.
So I find that when you have that moment of nervousness, like if you ask yourself what it is that you're afraid of, usually it's that like you'll look like an idiot in front of everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess so.
So I think it's a good idea just to open with that.
It's a very good opening
Right?
idea, Justin, for sure.
You just like so what you did, right? You just opened with like, hey, this might go really badly, but I'm here to do my best.
And the thing is, everyone in that audience sympathizes because most people don't like doing it. No. Most people do not. And I've taught presentation techniques to graphic design students, which is usually a pretty introverted bunch, and they don't love getting up in front of even their classmates. It's always a bit of a like pulling teeth for them. So yeah, most people will sympathize. If you're not good at it, or you think you're not going to be good at it, they'll be like, "Oh, okay, that's no problem." They'll forgive you a lot.
Right.
So really, you're right. Like you don't really have a lot to worry about.
And Pachakacha is particularly great because it's one way or another. It's like 6 minutes and 40 seconds, and you're done. So you don't even have time really to do it badly.
Right.
Even if people are like, "Oh, this isn't very good," then it's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
That's right. On to the next one.
Not there for long.
Right. You're not there for long. So that part's good. But I was going to say something about that. It comes back to this idea that when you're preparing for something, right, there is the preparation you do in advance, whatever it is. With Pachakacha, we had to prepare 20 slides that were going to be up for 20 seconds. You have to talk about those things and share a specific experience, something that you're passionate about or interested in.
Now, just a quick question. Is it timed? Do you just press it and it starts and then it times it out at 20 seconds, or do you have to do it yourself?
You have no control. Once you hit the stage, it starts and you go.
You go, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a common problem that I've noticed and I've been going, they started around 2011, and I've been to probably half a dozen of them, and I've presented at a couple. When people try to time their speech to their 20-second slides, unless they really know what they're doing public speaking wise,
Right.
it always falls apart. They rush or they go too slow, and then there's pauses and they're waiting for the next slide, or they're talking over themselves. And
What I tried to do for mine is I had a specific phrase that I wanted to say during the slide, that the slide corresponded roughly to a specific idea. But I didn't try to match like a beat to like the change of the slide. I just tried to have the thing I was talking about cover a point that was related to the image. And I find that that's, I've done 4 or 5 of them now. It seems to be the best way to go. Now, other people are way better at it. Like they practice a ton and they just, blow you out of the water.
It seems to me, as long as you can speak clearly about the image on the screen, whatever that image is,
Right.
like even if you miss one and you don't speak about it, that's probably okay.
Right.
Like, I don't know, if you're speaking about
Totally.
something,
Absolutely.
like, it's not like you speak for
The
20
crowd
seconds.
doesn't know what they missed.
Right,
They don't know
exactly.
what
Yeah.
you prepared.
Yeah.
Right.
And all the images are related to whatever the topic is, whatever your main topic is. So regardless, they're getting something from it, whether just looking at an image or hearing you speak about it, they're getting something out of the presentation.
And Greg, you had that great story about you did a TV interview a while back, and there was somebody who was very nervous about going up and talking about whatever field or whatever expertise they were.
Oh yeah, the people in the green room ahead of me.
Right,
Yeah.
and you gave them the advice like, just you're passionate about that one thing. You're just going to talk about that one thing, and
Yeah. What the advice I gave, they were like, I don't know what they're going to ask us a bunch of questions and I'm really nervous about what I'm going to do. I'm like, listen, you made the thing. I forget what it was, but it was some process that they had invented or created. And I said, when in doubt, talk process, because you'll remember it. It's completely, you're the expert on that thing, and that will come through. And any nervousness will be covered up or carried along by how competent you are speaking about something you remember specifically. And they just both looked at me and were like, wow, that's super good advice. And I was like, I've screwed up tons of these. So that's how I learned about it.
I did the most recent thing for me was the podcasting presentation I did at the Chamber of Commerce a while back. And yeah, I was like the expert in the room as far as process. That's what I talked about, is exactly what we're doing here. How to record the podcast, what equipment to use, what software to use.
Right.
And that's like second nature to me by now. So it was very easy to talk about. And I was not as nervous. Once I got up there, I was not as nervous.
Right.
The nervousness came from the beginning when the tech guys couldn't figure out a way to mirror my computer onto the projector. That was always an awkward thing.
never goes the way it's supposed to.
Now for this one, for yours, do you just give them the slideshow and they set it all up?
Yeah.
So you don't have to. Okay, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Because you just give them the PowerPoint or whatever it is, and then they just have it ready to go. They've tested it out. They know that it's going to play. And then you just go up there and talk.
Well, and when I sent mine in, they were like, hey, that's 20% low on the resolution.
Right.
Here's how you could change your settings so that when you export it from your slide deck,
Yep.
it comes this way.
Yep.
It was, like they clearly know what they're doing.
Yep.
Right. But this connects to, I'm putting together a few pitches for publishers right now. And so having the Pachakacha be the last thing that I worked on in that regards, it's kind of infused my head with what is the maximum amount of impact I can have with the minimum amount of prepared materials. Like I have a number of graphic novels that are, I have enough pages of each one that I think it's worthwhile to show a publisher. I want to show them everything.
Yeah.
But I realize that that's actually wrong-headed, right? Because if you show them everything, then they will have so many more questions. I don't want the buy-in to be, here's 5 plot threads, trust me, I can fit them together. I need the buy-in to be, I have an interesting story and I can do these interesting visuals. Can we now have a further conversation about that? Right? And so the first 2 days ago, I was putting a bunch of that stuff together. And for, the dear listeners wondering how I go about doing that, I just link all my Photoshop files to an InDesign file, and I build a PDF that is essentially, if I'm not there to introduce it, could that little comic of what the comic's about tell that story, right? And I just put in little notes, and anytime that the page isn't finished, I just have something that floats over top of it explaining what's supposed to be there. But the idea is that it's just supposed to be a brief introduction. But a couple of my projects I have 40 or 50 pages of, and you get into this like, I want to show everything. I want to, if only they got to this part, they'd love it. Then when I was doing Chakacha, and then I went back and looked at what I was doing for my pitches, and I was like, no, these are all too big. They all expect too much attention. This is not something a busy person can look at and get an idea of. And since I've been looking at it through that lens of like, imagine you're an editor and you have a lot to do today, and you maybe have 5 minutes to go over this guy's thing and see if it's worth a follow-up meeting. That's what I'm building now. And I've gone back and redone all of my pitches to reflect simply that.
It's an elevator pitch in PDF form.
Yeah, and I get, maybe you, I shouldn't speak for you, dear listener, but I get into this habit of wanting to show everything or show too much, or talk about the broader themes and the bigger ideas and what it really means. And like, that's for the follow-up. That's for when you have an editor and they've agreed to the project or they've agreed to hear more about it. It's not for the initial step. And I got, what is the name of it? I'll look it up while you guys are talking. There was a podcast that I was listening to, which is like 15 minutes long, and it's a bunch of writers talking about their process. And tying into what we're talking about here right now, they said that when you're writing for TV or writing for film, there's this rule in the writer's room that the audience will accept a single buy-in sort of for the first 30 minutes, meaning that you cannot ask them to suspend their disbelief for more than one thing on a new series.
Okay.
Right? For longer than 30 minutes, which means if it's TV, one buy-in per episode. Yeah. Right? And if it's a film, right, you can introduce something crazy, but you got to ride it out, let people experience that and understand it and know what it is. And I was realizing that in my pitch, I had too many buy-ins. It was like, this will happen, and then this will happen, and then this will happen. But if you're not already invested, those step 2s and 3s are premature in the conversation, right? They have to like that first part, and hopefully the question then is asked, what happens in the story? And then you have the answer. And it comes back to being the expert, right? Knowing your own story really well. And if you can get that person on the phone or get that person into a room and they say, hey, we're interested in this, tell me more about it. Now you're the expert.
Don't forget, we're Section 9. We'll clean it up. We're the ones who get our hands dirty.
I'll be at Fan Expo this weekend coming up, and so I'll get lots of practice because people always ask you what's the new thing, and you have to encapsulate it into a single sentence. I always find that. So the sentences that survive after a 3-day show of talking about things nonstop for 10 hours a day, the ways in which you describe it that seem to be resonating with people.
So I imagine
it's like a cage match
through
for
trial
ideas.
and error. You discover like the phrasing
that people click to.
Oh, it's so cool. It's like rewriting in your head when you're speaking.
Yeah.
So how do you just remember those things that you said, or do you have to write them down?
Yeah, you have the benefit of you describe a book a certain way, and then someone's like, "Meh, okay," and they're like, "Don't see," and then you describe it another way, and someone goes, "Oh, tell me more." And then you start with the next time a person asks you with the one that worked better, and if they say, "Oh, tell me," and you just get a little deeper each time.
Very neat.
At least that's how I like doing it.
Yeah. And you guys are both going to Fan Expo Vancouver?
I am not.
No?
He's got busy shows right after that, though.
Oh, yeah, and the reason for that is Fan Expo Vancouver recently changed their scheduling. So the last Fan Expo in Vancouver was in November.
Okay. Yeah, it
then,
seemed like it was a weird timing. Okay.
Yeah, so they changed it back to March. It was originally in March, and they moved it to November for 2-3 years, and now they're moving it back to March. So it would have been my last show of the year and my first show of the year. And I also do an anime convention in Vancouver, so I just felt like I was maybe hitting the Vancouver crowd too many times, and I wouldn't have enough new stuff in between shows. So it just seemed like a good opportunity to give them a little bit of a break, and then I'll come back next March. Yeah.
Okay, that seems smart because they just saw you in November. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then shows that I did last year, you're doing Emerald City Comic Con, and you're doing Chicago, which I'm not doing either of those because I have work to do on the play and on Good Boys. So I have 2 books basically to finish. So I'm going to bow out of doing those shows in service of my deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so what are you looking forward to about Vancouver? How, do you expect it to be different because it's scheduled at a different time of year? Or?
Well, Vancouver is not a place I've been as often as Justin has been, so I am not overly concerned with, having oversaturated the market. But even if I had, last time I was in Vancouver, I did not have Apocrypha. I did not have copies of the new Baby Metal book. I didn't have any new projects to pitch, right? So I have a couple of things that I have new stuff for the table, and then I have hopefully a meeting with a contact that I have at Scholastic, and then a comics editor that I've lined up a meeting with, and possibly a film and TV editor also. So Vancouver is just like, it's a good double dip trip for me.
There's a lot of different things going on in Vancouver, and
Yeah.
you can access that. So.
And now for the dear listener who thinks that sounds super important, these are all pretty early stage conversations where you just figure out, is there any, can there be symbiosis between your ideas, right?
It's just about credibility, right? Is this a real person who actually can string a sentence together?
That's right, yeah.
What it is.
And you show up, you're only as good as your last project, right? So showing up with something that I think I put together that's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Being able to put Apocrypha in front of people and say, like, here's the last thing I did, and here's the next thing I want to do. Those are, those can work out pretty well. And even if they don't, it's what we're talking about. It's about that practice, right? If you want to be good in a room, right, convincing people to risk huge sums of money on your intellectual property, it takes practice to see what actually works, and also to know where their pushback is, because everyone has something they want from you. No one's going to front that kind of capital without lots of asks.
Yeah.
Right. And you need to get used to hearing what they are, knowing what they are, knowing where your lines are. And, that's going to be good moving forward. Justin and I have a bunch of projects that I think are going to get us in some rooms, and we need to have practice doing that. So any opportunity I have to be told no by somebody important, I'm going to take a shot at. I'm also, while I'm in Vancouver, going to catch up with an old friend of mine from high school that we used to hang out with like constantly, who saw on social media that I would be there, and so it's like, hey, you're in Vancouver, let's hang out. So shout out to Aaron. I look forward to our dinner on Thursday. But again, this comes back to like what we're doing. It's new. It's like kind of a first show for me. Like, I did this little one-day show here local, and we've had, I don't know how many months off where we were just making stuff in the studio.
Not that many.
Well, no, December, January, like 2.5 months.
Yeah, that seems like that's the longest idle time we've had in a long time.
And it wasn't very idle.
No, it wasn't very idle. Yeah,
Lots
we
going
just
on.
finished a book, right? That's all. What was I going to say about this? But there also comes, there's like you got to get your travel legs back, right? Where you don't want to use up all of your. So, dear listener, if you travel to shows, I imagine in my year that I have kind of a bank of patience that I spend on travel. And I try to be really careful not to use it all up early in the year. And so what I do against travel patience, using up my bank of travel patience, is I try to be overly prepared for the first bunch of shows so that everything goes smoothly, right? Like, I get my ride, I have my cab booked early, I have my, my hotels, we know where everything is, I know how to get there, it's one we've already stayed at before. So all of the things that normally use up your travel patience for the first few shows, I try to make sure are.
Have you ever gone right to the limit? Do you have to overdraw on your travel patience?
We came close, I think, at the end of when was that? I felt like I was making an overdraw when they switched our flights, and we ran across the airport, and then we were like.
That was New York, I think.
I forget
was
where that
on
was.
the way back from Chicago, where they told you the wrong gate.
Yeah, that's right, and sent me. Yeah, so I was close there, but yeah.
But you have to expect that kind of stuff. It happens. It happens when you travel.
And I think that's my point, is that
Yeah.
you must expect
Yes.
it, right? You must expect it. And as much as you want to take the ability to travel with ease for granted, it's actually like amazing that this little bag of meat is going to get transported to the other side of
Bags of mostly water.
that's right, bags of mostly water. Transported to the other side of the country with all my stuff, and then back again in a timely fashion.
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
it's a miracle of technology, and it's a miracle that more planes don't crash.
Thanks for that. Dear listeners, if this is my last podcast, I want you to know how much I've appreciated our time
No, you'll
together.
get there. You'll get there fine.
Right? You'll be killed if you return.
I'm warning you to watch your comments.
You spent a bit of time talking to some other podcasters here in Winnipeg.
Yes.
You went to a podcast meetup.
Yeah, that's like a thing.
Tell us about that.
So there is a podcast festival that was here last September, organized by the fellow who runs the podcast Witch Police.
Yes.
Sam.
Sam's name,
Yes.
yeah.
And I was on his show many years ago. Actually.
Oh, okay.
And to make a long story medium, he explained that they did this little podcast festival, and it was mostly people that they knew, and it was a very sort of small cross section of what podcasting could be, and they're trying to expand that into bringing in more types of shows, not just interview shows, but like podcasts of all varieties, and try to bring more of that to a new September show. And they thought that the easiest way to do that was to reach out to the community on a regular basis and let people have, again, that FaceTime, what we're talking about, like let everyone meet and see and figure out what they think about each other.
And share best practices and that
That's
kind
right.
of stuff, right?
So the first, there were people there who were sharing, mic techniques and easy ways to get in and what the costs are and how to, I explained. Everyone else knew what everything was called. I described your little board over there, and I described our microphones, and I told them some of the stuff we were using, and they all had that figured out. And there were different people using lots of different stuff.
Yeah.
And most of it was to do with their the ease in which they wanted to record their own type of show.
Yeah.
Right. So that was kind of neat. And then different people talking about how do you grow your audience? Why do you grow your audience? For what? Am I doing this show just for me, or am I doing it for other people? And a bunch of people who work for APTN were there talking about they have their day job in public broadcasting, and yet they still want to make content for themselves. And it was a neat meetup, a large cross section of the podcasting community. So once a month we're going to meet.
Yeah, I'll try and make it out to the next one. It depends on when it is, but it sounds like it's a great way to grow the community, and we have a very passionate community of podcasting here in Winnipeg. It's tough to sell this, and I teach this to students. So we go through this stuff. All this stuff that we do, I pass on that knowledge to the students, but it's very tough to, in terms of Red River College, show them that there's a career there, because right now there isn't. It's just something you do for fun. The ability to make money on this is somewhat limited because it depends on the size of your audience. Obviously, you need a pretty large audience to make any kind of advertising revenue on it. But as far as it being a value added, that's what this podcast is for you guys. It's a value added. It's a way for people to see more deeply into your process and into what you're thinking. And that's probably the best reason to do it right now, or to do it because you like to do it.
Yeah, our mission
fun.
statement is sort of if somebody's starting out, hopefully they'll learn to do something
better than you did.
Yeah, better than we did it the first time.
Yeah. So, but as far as doing a podcast, because I do my other ones, the Star Wars Nerds and Media Nerds, because I like doing it, because I like getting together with my friend and talking about Star Wars every week.
Right.
That's why we do it. It's not about the audience, and we do have a pretty good sized audience for that. People like to listen to that.
Right.
Right. So, but it's not something we ever discussed. We've discussed different marketing techniques, how we can market it better. Usually it's taking enough time just to record and post it. The marketing always comes last, and then maybe that's a discussion you guys can have at a future meeting. Don't give Justin the side eye.
Jordan, be quiet. Justin's talking.
Because it's not just about social media. It's not just about posting on social media. There's all kinds of things you can do to market a podcast. But I think it's a great idea to give people confidence. The whole purpose of my class is to give them the confidence to go there and to give them the tools in which to be successful at it, and then they can take it from there. But I think the good thing about the meetup is they said there was people there with all kinds of different experiences, and if you talk to other like-minded people, it will give you the confidence to go forward and the confidence to try something new or to keep going in the direction you're going.
There was a ton of people there who were doing, it's why you should make art. when you start making art, you should do it because it's fun and it gives back to you.
Yeah.
Right? It makes you feel
exactly the
better. It
same
makes
thing.
you feel engaged. That's why they were there. Like, we think it'll be fun to have a podcast. We're going to try having a podcast because it'll be fun and we like spending time together and we can accomplish something together. You know, maybe there's no more noble reason to do anything than that.
No, exactly. You cannot. It's like the same way they discuss. Every YouTuber will say, and my kids love YouTube, so they will like.
Mine too.
They will say, "I want to be a YouTuber when I grow up." My daughter has expressed that to me a few times, and I'm like, "Well, that's fine." But any YouTuber you speak to will say, it's not a career you can necessarily plan for. You have to start doing it because you love it. Then success will come eventually. And actually, we have a guest. Can I say? I can say it on the podcast. I'll probably have announced it. So we have a guest booked for FanQuest, who is a YouTuber called 8-Bit Music Theory. And so he has a channel. He's got maybe 250,000 subscribers, and he's got quite a good number of views on his videos. But all his videos have to do with video game music.
Cool.
And it's very cool. Like it's just great content. And he discusses, he's actually got a music degree or whatever from, I imagine, University of Manitoba. I don't know where he went to school, but so he is like a trained musician, as it were. And so he applies that theory to video game music, and it's very neat. So he's going to come in, he's going to talk about both music, the kind of content he creates, and also the process of becoming a YouTuber. But I guarantee you the first thing he's going to say is, I did it because I love it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do these videos because I love them and I have a lot of fun doing them, and it's not about making money.
We've been listening to a lot of video game soundtracks in the studio. What are the two?
Kingdom Two Crowns and Gris, Gris, which is it's a gorgeous. They're both like indie games. They're both gorgeous, and they both have great soundtracks.
Yeah, very pleasant.
Oh, I would. If we're going to be on that topic, I have to recommend the Undertale soundtrack.
Yeah,
and
Undertale.
Also Deltarune is the kind of follow-up. Deltarune is it's Undertale. It's a what's it called when you mix up the words? Anagram of Deltarune is an anagram of Undertale. It's the same letters.
Like Torchwood and Doctor Who.
Is that right? Yeah. Oh, I never occurred to me.
And video game music is interesting to me because it's like score for a film, but the scene is different every time because you're playing it. So
you're changing it. Yeah. Yes, that's right.
It's also like it's designed in a way to keep you from like lapsing in your attention. Like there is something psychological going on. Like there's a deep design to video game music to keep you engaged.
Let's get him on the podcast.
Oh, sure. No, yeah, we'll bring him on for sure. No, he's a super nice guy and he's very excited about coming to FanQuest.
The other good thing about convention life starting up again for us, I'm just realizing, is our podcast guest roster will grow because we'll be visiting a lot of shows, and we're going to, now that we figured out how to do what the parameters of miking just with the phone or miking with like a portable recorder, definitely going to do some man on the street recordings.
That kind of stuff is awesome. Yeah, for sure.
Our country is a peace-loving democracy.
Of course it is.
You're also coming to the college next week, is it, to talk to students?
Is that next week? Yeah.
So you're talking to, and by the way, are you coming to my class, or what's going on with that?
We'll do both, yeah.
Okay.
We're going to come see Randy, right?
Yeah.
Is that who it is? Yeah.
So what do you guys talk, that's graphic design students.
I'm so excited to gush about Vector.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
It's going to be, my time to shine, and Greg will be there as well. Yeah, I think we're talking to
I'm going to talk about
first
raster
years
images
again. Yeah,
right there.
So usually I go through kind of the process of using Vector in the weird way that I use it, kind of how graphic design influenced the illustration style and how I'm using that. So I get to get like really technical in a way that I don't usually get to get because nobody knows what I'm talking about. So.
Yeah, they'll at least know.
They'll know.
Yeah,
they'll be introduced to Adobe Illustrator and Vector and be at that like really frustrated, like this is a dumb program.
You gave me a new InDesign hotkey that changed my life yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is their first year students, correct?
I believe they're first year.
Okay.
We've talked to first and second year. It kind of goes back and forth. I can't remember which class. Anyways, I'll still gush about.
And if we're, when we prep to go, I'm hanging air quotes, dear listener, when we prep to go to speak to a class, we realize that we have stuff that we can talk about, but we usually ask them what they want to know about first. Right. And then it becomes a much, the conversation is alive rather than us just like dictating a bunch of stuff they should know. Because, by the time they get out into the world, everything could be different anyway. So there's no sense in telling them.
To be fair, they're going to be out in the world next year.
A lot can change in a year, especially in tech, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to come to your class too.
Yes, and it's a social media class, so it'll be probably jumping off the conversation you had last episode about your social media presence and what you guys are doing differently and that kind of stuff. I think it's valuable for students to talk to people who actually have a significant social media following, because most of them don't. They're students; they're just kind of starting out. A lot of them have completed what they call we call it an IPP, an independent professional project, which is it's whatever they pitch it, so it's whatever they want it to be. Some people do a novel, some people do a graphic novel, some people do a podcast. It depends on what they want to do, and so they spend a year doing this thing, and they're just finishing it now. So whatever is going on. There've been book launches all over the place. There was a couple of, I think there's at least 2 graphic novels this year. But we usually have a few different ones. Like one of note over the last few years was Matthew Dick's Winterpeg. Which was incredible.
Yeah, Matthew did a great job on that.
It's such a good book, and so that was his project when he was in the program, and so it does kind of spark that creative. They don't get that in the classroom, that kind of thing. I will show them how to create a podcast, but this is a chance for them to create their own podcast.
Right.
The one that I was, I'm an advisor for a couple students. And one of the ones I have was a podcast called Super Bomb, which I'll give a shout out to here because I think your audience would also enjoy it. And it's essentially how did this get made, but for superhero movies. Right. So it's I'm talking about the most comically bad comic book movies ever made. And so they go through all the bad comic book movies. And I know you don't like to talk smack about.
Just don't like dissing on.
Yeah,
people.
No, I understand that, but it's I think if you come at it from if you come at it from the thought that nobody goes out and intends to make a bad movie, right? Everyone has the best. I think everyone mostly has the best interest in heart. Maybe
there's some, especially with comic book movies, there are some examples of them just trying to hold on to the IP and slapping something, and especially like before mainstream, like before Spider-Man, and was Spider-Man the first?
X-Men was
before
the first
X-Men. They're like in the 80s and early 90s. There's like a Captain America. There's a Fantastic Four. Like there's a couple, a Wonder Woman. There's a couple.
The movie
awesome
for Super Bomb, they did the final thing was a live event at the Park Theater. They did a live podcast recording, which I love the idea of.
Does it ever work out as well?
Well, it was not as well as tended as they hoped, but I think it's a thing that people will. It's still kind of a new idea here in Winnipeg, so I don't know that people here are quite on board with going to these, but I think if you were to hold a regular event, maybe this is what the podcast festival could become. Right. A regular event, monthly or whatever, where you just have a bunch of podcasts coming in to record in front of an audience, and maybe that's something that could happen out of that. But it went very well. It was very funny. They had Kevin McDonald there from Kids in the Hall. He was very funny, and the movie they were talking about was Rise of the Silver Surfer, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. So they did mention the Roger Corman Fantastic Four, which was solely made to keep the rights.
Yeah, they didn't distribute it or
they
didn't
release
it.
There's bootleg copies out there, but that was a Fantastic Four.
I've seen little clips from
it. Was made,
amazing.
Never meant to see the light of day, and of course made in a time where we couldn't access that stuff, and now we can. But they did speak about that, and it was a very good show. So anyway, all these students will be in my class next Wednesday, and you'll come and talk to them about that. So they're going to want to know they've created the content. They're going to want to know how to get that content out to their audience.
How to get famous online.
Well, how to get famous, but also how to sell books. Like you guys do that too. So I thought it would be very applicable for a lot of different reasons. So you guys can come in and talk to them about that.
Yeah, and they'll probably have some questions we don't anticipate. Right. That, those are the best ones.
Yes, right? Absolutely.
Because you get trapped. And then you have to be honest because it's the only answer you have.
I don't know. So let me Google that. No, I'm just
let me Google that. What's some good advice for our dear listeners? If we're going to stick to our mandate of learn something that you didn't know before, or don't make the mistake that we've made.
Stop putting so much pressure on yourself about certain things and take some time and sit down and read a book. Chillax.
Yeah, right. You can feel like you're way behind.
Stop and smell the roses.
Well, it sounds silly. In a way, right? To tell people that good advice for a creative lifestyle is to stop working all the time, right? But
we've been talking a lot about, Sam and me have been talking about how it stresses me out about the amount of video games that I should be playing to keep up with some of the video game stuff. And she, same deal when she needs to be reading more, but she feels like she should be working when she's reading.
Right.
And that's silly.
Yeah, it is silly.
We should be enjoying these things.
Yeah. Well, part of what you do is you consume pop culture, and then you reinterpret that for your designs and for your art. So that is part of your job.
Humanity has underestimated the consequences of computerization.
Nonsense!
One of the things I do like about traveling is that I read a lot.
Right.
I try to take no tech things along with me so
That's
that I
great.
don't.
I mean, it doesn't work on the plane anyway.
A book
Why
doesn't
bother?
need to be plugged in.
Yes,
and I can
that's
have
great.
it whenever I want,
That's a
and I
great
sip
idea.
from it. And I like that. Some people hate reading in little increments like that, but I enjoy it.
No, I can do that too. Yeah,
so
for sure.
I really like that, and it's just about. And I usually don't. I try not to pick a book that is like on topic of what I'm working on, and I don't pick a book that is related necessarily to something in my field. Since I'm already traveling, and that's already has its own stresses, I just try to.
But are you going to be reading Gear and Sea this weekend?
This weekend I will. But what's cool about that is that I'll just be dipping into somebody else's interpretation of an idea that we had, which is like so exciting.
Very cool.
What if it's bad?
Oh, it's not bad. Come on.
No.
I mean, I read the first chapter. It was great. Claire is great.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for us to let's have this discussion. What if when we read it, we don't like it? Or what if we disagree? This is actually more important, right? What if you and I fundamentally disagree? And it's important for the dear listener to understand what
Worst
we'll do.
case scenario, it's going to have a great cover, and I know I can sell that at my table.
I more was talking about what if the ending is something that you love and I hate. What I'm feeding you here is that you can tell the dear listener about how we have a contract in place that allows you to have final say anyway.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Justin is the primary IP. He has like a larger share of he has more votes essentially.
Because he came up with the
Because he came up with the idea. And we put that on paper long ago.
Yeah.
So I just thought it would be good for the dear listener to know that some of those arguments that you can anticipate in that creative field, right? I'm not the one that she has to impress.
So what happens if,
Justin
now
is.
I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if it did, would Claire have to rewrite it?
No.
Or you wouldn't publish it?
Yeah, it would be, we would be able to, we'd have to pay her the rest of her fee.
Yeah.
And then it would be up to us to decide to publish it or not.
Oh, okay.
Right? She did it as a work for hire. She'll get royalties and copies to sell at her table. And she would actually, according to the contract, I have to clarify this, she would still, I think, be able to sell the copies that she's printing, even if we decided to kill it. Right? As part of our contract. Which is, to me, fine, because she put in a lot of work.
If that was ever a fear, I don't think I'd have
We
ever...
wouldn't have done it.
We
No,
wouldn't
for
have
sure.
done it.
Right.
Yeah, and like I've had enough conversations with Claire that I think she understands the world and the sandbox that we've put her in,
Yeah.
and unless there's something very inappropriate in that book, that's not a fear. And even if she plays around with the canon in a way that I'm not too sure about, I still have a lot of flexibility with what's going to happen with 2 and 3, and it's not a bad thing that if maybe she sends me off in a direction I hadn't considered, I'm flexible that way, I'm not like, I don't have it written in stone in my head.
So maybe a practical piece of advice for the listener here when you're doing a collaboration is not to have everything set in stone. Like you can't decide what everything is and then go looking for collaborators. That's actually not collaboration,
Right, yes.
right? That's work for hire.
Yes.
If we only want you to do what we say, that's work for hire. We'll tell you what to do. That's all we expect. But when we sat down with Claire, she said, well, I want to be able to write the book, the way that I write books, which means I'm going to discover some things along the way. And I think that's how she put it, which like immediately I was on board. I was like, yeah, what will we discover? I don't know. That's so cool.
We came up with a couple ideas, and I think the parameters we gave her was we like the idea of the robot ship,
Yeah.
the big turtle ship that kids live on.
Yeah.
There
We gave
needs
her
to be
the
a blue
story beats.
robot.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty much it.
Yeah, and for the listener's sake, there was some architecture for what we said thematically we wanted in the story. What some key features of the geography. She asked us for a bunch of story Bible things. She asked us for a bunch of rules related to the world, which we had to come up with. And then she suggested some that maybe were better. And that's, that's fine.
You guys are going to have to get used to other people playing in your sandbox.
I hope so.
It's like George Lucas can't get worried about what other people come up with for Star Wars.
I
Right?
appreciate you comparing us to George Lucas.
I think that's a very similar situation. It's like you guys have created a world, and now you're allowing other people to create content based on your original ideas, and that's exactly what George Lucas did.
Yeah.
For Star Wars. Although I would argue he did it right away because he did direct the first one, but after that he let other people, and the immediate result was The Empire Strikes Back, which was incredible. Actually, no, sorry, the immediate result was the Star Wars Holiday Special, which was awful. But it was because he had no input into that. He was too busy making Empire Strikes Back to have input into the Holiday Special. But The Empire Strikes Back is widely regarded as the best Star Wars film. So
it is.
This could be the best ever book in the...
What if it's better than all the original stuff?
What if it's better than every Cassian Tonkin Rest on Water?
So, but these are real things.
It's going to set the bar so high.
So we're joking about it, right? But these are real things that happen when you're the shepherd of even your own IP. Is that if you invite a collaborator, that collaborator might be more popular than the original.
Like when Johnny Cash did Hurt,
and
the Nine Inch Nails guys were like, we're never doing that again because he did a better job.
Yeah.
But what if it's that situation?
This is a legitimate concern, right? And you should, if you're thinking about being a collaborator with someone, you should recognize that what if their contribution is going to be lauded as the best part? And you have to be okay with that. You have to be the kind of person that can let that be okay.
Or don't do it.
Yeah, and if you're not, if you think, oh, well, I wouldn't like that, maybe don't collaborate. Maybe do everything yourself, see how that works out. That'll teach you that collaboration is better.
It is. I was hoping you get around to that, because it really is better when you collaborate. The more brains on anything is a good thing, for sure.
And that's been one of the central ideas behind this, letting people play in the sandbox and just growing the world and the brand. Like if I just kind of keep it all to myself and do it, it's going to take years to get to the point where, we're at with letting a couple other people jump in. It's just, it helps make it a bigger thing and get it out there more.
And for some people, this book will be their introduction to this universe.
Sure.
And then they'll go and buy Cassian Tonkin, Rust and Water, and Dragon Nanny and all the other stuff.
Yeah, and for the people who are wondering like how it works, Justin and I tried to budget our growth related to the sales of the books themselves. So trying not to overreach. We did invest a little bit beyond that for the animation, maybe more than a little bit. But the point was,
it looks so cool
that when we were saying what should we do, it was, well, we could take this money and just spend it on stuff, or we could take this money and spend it on growing the idea, right? And we're not talking about kingly sums, but we're talking about enough that people are paid fairly for their share of time. Of course. Right? So, cool. See, we did have a practical thing to say.
There you go.
We're so good at podcasting. This has been Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made, and we're encouraging you to keep trying things. They won't always work, but they'll always get better. Join the fight and make comics.